The sun dipped lazily into the ocean, casting orange fire over the waves as the massive yacht carved through the Mediterranean. Everything looked perfect on the outside. Champagne glasses clinked, expensive laughter filled the air, and the sea breeze carried the scent of salt and secrets. But beneath all the luxury was a storm ready to erupt. Elena Hartley leaned against the railing, the wind teasing her golden-brown hair. She had been quiet the whole trip, smiling where necessary, pretending everything was fine. That's what women like her were trained to do: smile, nod, stay beautiful, and don't ask too many questions. She had been the perfect wife for nearly 10 years, the billionaire's wife, the arm candy, the trophy, except she wasn't dumb, not anymore. Across the deck, her husband, Richard Hartley, poured another glass of Dom Perignon, laughing too loud. With his financial advisors, men who seemed to advise more about laundering and hiding money than anything legal. Eleanor had spent too many sleepless nights connecting dots Richard never thought she'd look for. Offshore accounts, fake names, suspicious meetings in Dubai and Geneva, and worst of all, new women. Dozens, some barely legal. The final crack had come 2 weeks earlier, a pregnancy test, positive. She had sat there on the marble floor of their master bathroom, shaking, not out of fear but fury. How could she bring a child into this world, a world built on blood money and betrayal? But Richard already knew. He'd seen the test. She was sure of it. And now here they were, on a second honeymoon. Just the two of them. No crew, no staff. Just the man who had kissed her forehead at their wedding and the same man she now believed was planning her murder. He came up behind her quietly, his voice smooth like it always was when he was hiding something. "Why, you've been quiet, sweetheart. Everything all right?" She turned, smiled like she used to. "Just tired." He nodded, studying her face. "Maybe we'll anchor near Sardinia. Get some rest, swim a little." She gave a soft laugh. "Sure, that sounds lovely." Later, when the sky was darker and the water colder, Richard suggested they go up to the viewing deck. "Best stars you'll ever see," he said. She followed. Not because she trusted him, but because she needed him to do it. She needed proof. Eleanor had slipped a tiny camera inside the pendant she wore, one Richard had gifted her on their 3rd anniversary, ironically. It now streamed live to her lawyer's secure server. At the edge of the deck, she looked down. The water was endless, deep, and merciless. "Isn't it beautiful?" she said softly. Richard didn't reply. He stepped closer behind her. She felt his hand graze her back. Gentle at first, then firm. "Goodbye, Eleanor," he whispered. And then she was falling. The cold hit like a punch. Salt burned her throat as she screamed, the water swallowing her whole. The yacht didn't stop. Its lights grew smaller until they vanished completely into the night. But Eleanor didn't die. She kicked, choked, clawed her way to the surface, then floated, gasping, her body trembling in shock. A fisherman's boat found her hours later, a half-dead woman wrapped in seaweed and bruises. When she woke up in a tiny medical station off the coast of Tunisia, she didn't cry. She didn't panic. She smiled, because Richard thought she was dead. And now he would learn what it meant to betray someone who had nothing left to lose. The news of Elena's disappearance hit the media within days. "Tragic accident claims billionaire's wife at sea," the headlines screamed. Photos of Richard Hartley, grieving, hollow-eyed and heroically composed, plastered every major outlet. He played the part flawlessly, standing in front of press cameras in a tailored black suit, tears welling up at the corners of his cold, calculating eyes. "I tried to save her," he said with a hoarse voice. "She slipped. 1 second she was there, and the next, gone." Crocodile tears, sympathy poured in. Friends, celebrities, politicians, all mourning the loss of Elena Hartley, the elegant philanthropist and socialite. No one questioned the story. No one ever questioned Richard. He was too powerful, too connected. But in a dusty apartment above, the bakery in coastal Tunisia, Eleanor sat watching it all unfold on a battered old laptop. She watched the lies spin out like silk from a spider's mouth. She sipped strong coffee as she studied the footage of her own funeral, a private yacht service with a white rose cast into the sea. She paused the video, zoomed in on Richard's face, his smug, fake grief. She stared for a long time. "You're going to wish I died," she whispered. Her body was still healing. Her right arm was in a brace. Her ribs ached every time she laughed, which wasn't often, but her mind, sharp, focused, cold as the sea that tried to take her. Her first call was to Carmen Vasquez, her old college roommate, a criminal defense lawyer who once said, "If you ever kill someone and need to hide the body, call me, I won't even ask questions." Carmen answered after the third ring. "Hello? It's Elena," she said. Silence. Then a soft gasp. "Holy shit, you're alive?" "I need your help," Elena said, "but you can't tell anyone, not even your dog." "I don't have a dog." "Good. Less witnesses." Within 24 hours, Carmen flew in. She brought cash, burner phones, fake IDs, everything. Elena needed to start rebuilding. They sat in the shadows of a low-lit cafe and planned. "You're sitting on a goldmine of blackmail," Carmen said. "The pendant camera, did it catch the push?" "Clear as day." "That's attempted murder." Elena shook her head. "It's not enough." Carmen raised an eyebrow. "So you want to ruin him, not just jail him?" "I want to burn everything he loves," Elena said coldly. "His empire, his reputation, his freedom, and then I'll let him rot." Carmen leaned back. "All right then. You're going to need 3 things: evidence, allies, and a way back into his world without him knowing." "I've got 1, Elena said. "You. Now help me get the rest." They spent days digging. Carmen pulled legal strings. Elena used her knowledge of Richard's operations, fake charities, shell companies, illegal trades, to begin building a map of his criminal empire. He wasn't just a greedy billionaire. He was a global puppet master, laundering millions through disaster zones and war economies. But what shocked her most was a hidden folder she hacked from one of his encrypted drives. It wasn't just about money. There were pictures of her alive, recent, taken from afar, on beaches, streets, even from across the cafe window just days earlier. Her breath caught in her throat. "He knows I survived." Carmen looked at the images and muttered, "Shit." "He's watching me," Elena whispered. "Why hasn't he done anything?" "Because," Carmen said, "he's probably planning something worse." Elena closed the laptop slowly. "Well then," she said, eyes like steel. Our 2 weeks passed like slow-burning fire. Elena moved through the world like a ghost, one who used to live in penthouses and sip wine with senators, now ducking into back alleys, trading jewels for untraceable favors, and gathering the broken pieces of her old life to forge a weapon out of them. She dyed her hair darker, cut it shoulder length, wore sunglasses even at night. She no longer looked like the perfect billionaire's wife. She looked like someone who had crawled out of death and hadn't quite left it behind. Carmen stayed close, navigating the legal side, helping her track the money trail. But it was Elena who insisted on doing the dirty work. She needed to feel it, needed to be inside every step of Richard's downfall. The first strike came quiet. A massive anonymous leak hit the web. One of Richard's key charities was exposed as a front for illegal arms funding in West Africa. News agencies exploded. Governments panicked. Richard issued statements, denials, blamed hackers, blamed jealous competitors. But Elena knew how his mind worked. She could almost hear him growling in his luxury suite, surrounded by lawyers, trying to control a flood he couldn't plug. She wasn't done. She contacted an old friend, Luca Moretti, a fixer from Milan who owed her father a favor. Luca didn't ask questions when she sent him the pendant video. He simply watched it, jaw tight, and said, "You want it buried or broadcast?" "Broadcast," she said, "worldwide, but not yet." She was saving that piece of hell for last. Luca helped her set up a false identity, Sophia Lane, wealthy South African investor. With that mask, she slipped back into high society. She attended a gala in Monaco, wearing a black dress that made her feel like vengeance wrapped in silk. And guess who was there? Richard, standing beside a young redhead half his age, flashing his wolf smile, shaking hands like nothing in his world had ever broken. Helena stood just a few feet from him, her heartbeat strangely calm. She studied him, his confident posture, his smug charm, but his eyes. They darted, nervous, searching. He felt her, even if he didn't see her. She turned before he could catch her gaze and disappeared into the crowd. Later that night, she walked the hotel balcony with Carmen on the phone. "He's scared," she said. "Good," Carmen replied. "What's next?" "I want his inner circle." And so she went for his weak links. His CFO, Gordon Vance? He liked young escorts and losing company money at private casinos. Elena paid one of his favorite girls to plant a flash drive in his jacket pocket. 2 days later, she had enough data to prove embezzlement, tax fraud, and bribery. She leaked it straight to the tax bureau in 3 countries. Richard fired him in a heartbeat, but the stain stuck. Next was Brianna Cole, Richard's head of PR. She once threatened to destroy Elena's image during a tabloid scandal years ago. Elena didn't forget. She sent Brianna a bouquet of roses with a single photo tucked inside. Brianna, half naked, laughing in a hotel bed beside a married foreign diplomat. Brianna vanished from the media circuit the next morning. Piece by piece, Richard's world began to collapse. But Elena knew that he wasn't just sitting still. No man like Richard accepted defeat without swinging back. Then came the message. A white envelope slid under the door of the apartment she was hiding in. No address, no name, just one photo inside. Her ultrasound. The baby. She froze. Her hands trembled as she sank to the floor. Carmen found her like that minutes later, pale and silent. "How does he know?" Elena whispered. Carmen looked at the image, horror dawning on her face. "He has someone inside the clinic. He's tracking everything." "He doesn't want to ruin me," Elena said slowly. "He wants to end me." Carmen nodded. "We have to move now." But Elena shook her head. "No," she said, fire returning to her eyes. "He wants war. I'll give it to him." 3 nights after the ultrasound photo threat, Elena and Carmen moved into a more secure location, an abandoned villa in Marseille owned by one of Carmen's former clients. It was dusty, smelled like old books and sea rot, but it had reinforced doors, no digital footprint, and most importantly, no memories. Elena barely slept. Every creak of the old wooden floor sounded like a warning. Every shadow outside the window felt like eyes. She couldn't just keep running. It was time to hit Richard where it hurt most, his legacy. Richard had been planning a merger with a tech giant for years, a deal that would elevate him from just another billionaire to global power status. It was all over business channels, Hartley, Industries joining hands with Orion Tech, a billion-dollar AI conglomerate. Stocks were rising, investors were buzzing, the board was foaming at the mouth. Elena decided to crash the party. Using her Sophia Lane alias, she requested a meeting with Orion Tech's CEO, under the guise of a wealthy venture capitalist wanting to invest in the merger. With Luca's help, the meeting was secured in Zurich. She arrived at the Orion Tech tower looking like power incarnate, sleek gray pantsuit, minimal jewelry, calm steel in her eyes. The CEO, Lionel Becker, was slick, charming, and ambitious, but also greedy. Elena played her cards right, hinting at insider knowledge, secrets she could reveal about Hartley's criminal network. "What makes you think I'd believe a stranger with a story and a fake name?" he asked, smiling over his glass of bourbon. She slid a file across the table. "Because only someone inside would have access to these," she said. He opened it, and what he saw drained the color from his face. Photos, documents, recordings. Undeniable proof of money laundering, falsified audits, and bribed regulators tied directly to Hartley Industries. "If you go through with this merger," she said, "you won't just lose money, you'll go down with him." Becker said nothing. But 2 days later, the merger collapsed. Publicly, it was called a strategic delay. Privately, Richard went ballistic. Elena watched the news report and smiled. That's 3 towers down. But that night, something went wrong. Carmen returned to the villa later than usual, pale and shaking. "We have a problem." What now? Elena asked, exhausted. They found Luca. Elena stood up sharply. Found him where? In Milan. Someone ran him off the road. He's in a coma. His safe house was ransacked. They took everything. Elena, they know everything now. Her heart thudded painfully. Even the pendant video? Carmen nodded slowly. If they decode it, they'll know you have the smoking gun. For the first time in weeks, Elena felt fear crawl back up her spine. She had underestimated Richard. He wasn't just reacting anymore, he was hunting. She paced the villa for hours, every sound making her flinch. By dawn, she knew what had to happen. No more hiding, she told Carmen. It's time to make this public. You sure? Carmen asked. Once it's out, there's no going back. He tried to drown me, Elena said. Now I'll flood his world. She made a new plan. She would go live, an anonymous broadcast, a confession, a reveal. Not just about Richard, but about the world he built and bought and buried people in. It would be risky, it would be dangerous, but it would be loud. Elena sat in front of the camera, her face half-shadowed, the pendant clutched tightly in her hand. Behind her, Carmen adjusted the settings on the laptop, triple-checking firewalls, proxies, and encryption. The live stream would be untraceable, at least for a little while, just long enough. You sure you want your face shown? Carmen asked, her voice low. Yes, Elena said. Let the world know I'm not a ghost. Let him know I'm not afraid. They were about to unleash hell. The stream went live on an encrypted platform known for whistleblowers and rogue journalists. Within minutes, thousands of viewers logged in. Carmen sent the link to every major, a news agency anonymously. Elena leaned in, looked straight into the camera and began, My name is Elena Hartley. You were told I drowned 3 months ago. That's a lie. She took a deep breath, her voice steady as stone. My husband, Richard Hartley, the billionaire CEO of Hartley Industries, pushed me off a yacht in the middle of the Mediterranean. He left me to die. Why? Because I knew too much about his offshore crimes, his shell companies, his dirty connections, and because I was pregnant. The chat exploded. Reactions poured in like thunder. She didn't stop. I survived. I have proof. Everything from financial fraud to attempted murder. I've lived in hiding. I've watched him lie on national television. But I'm done hiding. She pulled the pendant from around her neck and held it up. This contains a live video of the moment he tried to kill me. After this stream ends, it will be uploaded everywhere. She stared into the lens. To Richard Hartley, you should have made sure I was dead. Then she shut off the stream. For a moment there was silence in the villa, just the quiet hum of the laptop. Then Carmen's phone began lighting up, like fireworks, emails, messages, news alerts. He's trending in 27 countries, Carmen whispered. Your video is everywhere. Within hours, headlines took over the world. Billionaire wife returns from the dead, reveals murder plot live. Richard Hartley accused of attempted murder in viral stream. Whistleblower wife exposes billionaire's crimes, shocking footage released. The fallout was instant. Stock markets reacted violently. Hartley Industries plummeted. Board members panicked. The media turned rabid. Protesters showed up outside Richard's mansion in L.A. chanting, "Justice for Elena." And somewhere in the chaos, Elena smiled. For the first time in weeks. But her peace didn't last. Carmen's burner phone rang. Blocked number, she answered. Hello? A deep, cold voice replied. You think this ends with a video? She declared war, and now I'm answering it. Click. Carmen slowly turned to Elena. That was him. Elena's chest tightened. He's not hiding anymore. The next day, Elena's safe bank accounts were frozen. Her aliases were flagged. The law firms that once whispered behind her back now ghosted her. Richard had activated his army, lobbyists, hackers, private mercenaries. He was using every weapon in his reach. He even went live on national television. My wife, he said, with a fake tremble in his voice, is clearly suffering from delusions and paranoia. This is a tragic case of mental illness fueled by trauma. I only want her to get help. The media began spinning both sides. Some called her a hero. Others painted her as a grieving, unstable woman looking for attention. The narrative was, splitting. But Elena wasn't rattled because she had one final weapon, not just truth but revenge, and to deliver it, she'd have to return to the place it all started, the Hartley estate in Santorini, the one she'd vowed never to see again, where she would face Richard and finish this. The jet-black waters around Santorini shimmered, under the moonlight, just as they had the night Richard tried to end her. Elena stood at the cliff's edge, cloaked in the salty breeze, staring down at the sprawling white mansion that once belonged to her, or at least the version of her that trusted too easily and loved too hard. Now she was someone else. She didn't. Come alone. Carmen sat in the rental car parked along the old gravel path, watching through binoculars, ready to call the press and the police with a single tap. You know he's going to try something, Carmen warned through the earpiece. He's more dangerous than ever. He's cornered. That's the point, Elena whispered back. Cornered animals don't just bite, they bleed. Inside the estate, everything was quiet, but not for long. Helena slipped through the back entrance, the same door she once used to sneak into the garden during lavish dinner parties, back when she still believed in fairy tales and rich men with kind hearts. Her steps were careful, but confident. She knew every hallway, every creaky floorboard. Her heart thudded in her chest, but her hands were steady. This was no longer fear, this was purpose. She reached the study, the room where Richard kept his private vault, hidden behind a painting of a Venetian warship. She pulled it back, entered the code, his birthday ironically, and watched the steel door slide open. Inside were documents, hard drives, laptops, gold bars, the crown jewels of corruption. She began collecting everything, stuffing them into a fireproof bag strapped to her back. Almost done, she whispered into the mic. But then the light snapped on, and Richard stepped into the doorway. I was wondering when you'd show up, he said, calm as ever. Elena froze, then slowly turned to face him. He looked different, thinner, angrier, more desperate. But his voice still dripped with arrogance. You should have stayed dead, and you should have never married a woman smarter than you, she replied coldly. He laughed once. Smarter? You're still nothing but a pawn, Eleanor. I built this empire. You think the world will believe some crying wife with a camera and a sob story? They already have. He stepped closer. Then why are you here? If you've won, why come back? Because I'm not done yet. He lunged forward. She moved faster. They struggled, his hands around her throat, hers clawing at his face, but he was bigger, heavier. She reached for the taser Carmen gave her, jammed it into his ribs. His scream was sharp, but brief. He dropped to the floor, twitching, breath heaving. She knelt beside him. You remember that night? On the yacht, she whispered. You looked me in the eyes and said goodbye, thought you'd won, you were wrong. She stood, took the flash drive from her pocket, the backup to the pendant video, and shoved it into the laptop on the desk. Then she clicked upload to every media house, law office, and government contact Carmen had compiled in their black file. It was done. But Richard wasn't. He coughed, slowly dragging himself toward the desk. You think this'll destroy me? You think the world cares? Money talks louder than justice, Elena. She stared down at him. That's why I'm not just destroying your empire, she said. I'm taking your freedom. Suddenly, red and blue lights flashed outside the estate windows. Dozens of police vehicles swarmed the property. Helicopters hovered above like vultures. By the way, she added, stepping over him, Carmen made sure the Greek authorities were watching. This live. They've had your extradition paperwork ready for weeks, he screamed after her. You bitch, I own this world! But Elena just walked away, head high, spine straight, heart finally beating without fear. Outside, Carmen ran up and hugged her, shaking and laughing. He's going down, she said breathlessly. Interpol, EU fraud unit, everyone's coming for him. Elena looked up at the stars. He's going where he belongs. 2 weeks after Richard Hartley's arrest, the world was still reeling. The headlines hadn't stopped. From Forbes to The Guardian, from shady Reddit threads to primetime news, everyone wanted a piece of the Elena Hartley story. The headlines now called her many things: the billionaire who survived murder, the wife who fought back, the ghost in gold heels. But Elena didn't care about the names anymore. She wasn't interested in being anyone's symbol. She just wanted peace. She watched the chaos unfold from a quiet coastal house in Portugal, a safe place provided by a non-profit Carmen had once helped defend. For the first time in months, she could breathe without watching her back. Carmen had warned her. "This won't be the ending you think it is," she said one morning over coffee. "Taking down Richard was only part one. Now, the world wants you to perform, to talk, to relive it over and over again. You ready for that?" Eleanor had simply nodded. "I didn't fight to go silent again." In the days that followed Richard's arrest, the walls around him crumbled quickly. The video from the pendant, admissible in court. The leaked files from his vault, irrefutable. His former CFO and head of PR. Both flipped on him within days to cut deals. Offshore accounts were frozen, private jets grounded, luxury homes seized by government agencies across 3 continents. The Greek government filed attempted murder charges. The US piled on with federal crimes, fraud, racketeering, conspiracy. Interpol had him locked down so tight he couldn't sneeze without someone documenting it. Still, Eleanor didn't feel victorious. Not yet. Because Richard, even in custody, played the game. His lawyers painted her as a woman scorned. A jealous wife, they claimed, twisting facts to get revenge. They hired PR firms to push a counter-narrative. Some people bought it. There were still men in high places who toasted to Richard in secret boardrooms, but not everyone was fooled. Eleanor received thousands of letters, survivors, women in silence, wives who'd swallowed their screams for years. Her story didn't just break news cycles, it broke chains. She responded to every letter she could, even when her hands shook. And when the court hearings began, Elena didn't watch from afar. She flew in, walked through the marble courthouse steps in Athens, with her chin up and belly now slightly rounded. From her growing child, cameras flashed, reporters shouted, but she didn't flinch. Inside the courtroom, she sat across from Richard for the first time since the night he threw her off that yacht. He looked different, not just thinner, but smaller, stripped of power, of polish. No tailored suit could hide the rage in his eyes. He stared at her like he still owned her. She stared back like she no longer feared hell, because she'd already crawled through it and came back with scars made of steel. The prosecutor laid everything out. Footage, documents, financial trails, witness testimonies. It was a massacre, but a quiet one. Sharp, surgical. Elena barely needed to speak, but when the judge asked her to, she did. She stood before the courtroom, voice clear. "I was a wife, I trusted the man I married. And he tried to erase me like I was nothing, but I wasn't. I'm not. I survived not just the water, not just the fear, but him. And now I'm here to make sure he never hurts anyone else." The courtroom held its breath. Richard didn't. He stood, snarled like a rabid dog, shouting, "She's lying! All of this is a setup. She's playing all of you." The judge banged the gavel. "Mr. Hartley, sit down or you'll be removed." But Elena? She just smiled, because finally, he was the one screaming into silence. 6 months later, the world had moved on, but Elena Hartley hadn't. She stood barefoot on a quiet beach in northern Portugal, the wind dancing through her hair, the ocean stretching out in endless forgiveness. The sky was painted soft orange as the sun dropped behind the waves, and in her arms, wrapped in a soft white blanket, was her son. No reporters, no cameras, just them. His name was Noah. She named him after the man who built an ark before the storm came. A survivor, a symbol of something new. Richard Hartley had been sentenced just 3 weeks earlier, 40 years without parole in a high-security Greek prison. The judge called him a man of immense privilege and infinite cruelty. His fortune was frozen, his board seat stripped, his reputation shattered. The empires he built were now being dismantled piece by piece by international courts, investigators, and relentless public outrage. Still, Elena knew true justice didn't come from a courtroom. It came from peace, from survival, from choosing to live well when someone tried to bury you. Carmen visited often, though she was back to work now, defending the innocent, tearing down crooked executives inspired by Elena's war. She told her one night over dinner, "You did what most people only dream of. You looked your monster in the eye and didn't blink." Elena didn't say much in response. Some wounds, even when healed, didn't need parades. She turned down every interview request, every book deal, every podcast. She gave her final statement to the world through a single letter published anonymously in The Atlantic. It read, "I was not born a fighter, I was made one. When the man who vowed to love me tried to kill me, I chose not to die. I chose to rise, and I chose to live. Not just for myself, but for every woman who's ever been silenced, dismissed, or erased. Let this be a reminder. You are not weak for surviving. You are terrifyingly strong. E.H." That letter went viral. But by then, Elena had already disappeared into a quieter life. She donated what little she had left to women's shelters and survivor networks. She used her knowledge of finance to consult for organizations that protected those fleeing violent partners. But most days she didn't talk about what happened because now she was free. Every morning she walked along the cliffs with Noah strapped to her chest, and when he cried she would sing to him, not lullabies but stories. Stories of storms and oceans, and a mother who wouldn't die, even when the world tried. And sometimes she would look down at the sea, dark, wide, and cold, the same sea that once tried to swallow her whole, and she would whisper, "You failed." Then she'd walk home, where no one owned her name anymore, because Elena Hartley was dead, and the woman who replaced her had finally chosen to live.